Hey guys, Stock Saturday, and it's a fairly eventful but flat week. So I'm down about 1,000, but there have been quite a few moves. So it's not really in the crypto, surprisingly. Argo blockchain slightly up for the week and Hive down. Silver getting knocked a fair bit. So Pan American silver is down. Silver is sort of the long-term move. Chinese stocks up. So Baba and Baidu sort of doing quite well. They've announced sort of stimulus, not QE though, tax cuts and sort of fee reductions and various things. They don't do a lot of QE, a lot of printing. So I do see that as quite good. They never really done that much in the sort of pandemic times. So yeah, I don't see that as too bad, and all the Chinese stocks have sort of seen a reasonable boost. So presumably the government can just sort of cut their cloth a little and take these tax cuts, sort of not having to worry about elections and that sort of thing. So yeah, that seemed reasonably good. Obviously, the Chinese tech's been on a slide for some time, so good to see them come back a little. And yeah, over on the Trading212 side, so this is down sort of more than anything. This is where the drop has come, down about £1,500. And the part of that is the ARC Pi, that's down a couple £100, I think, overall. So obviously 30 odd positions, 40 positions, whatever there is in there. Yeah, most of them are sort of down 10 quid, 20 quid. So yeah, that's not great, but something I'd be looking to invest in sort of later on. Obviously Cathy Wood getting knocked a fair bit. But mainly this week it is the REITs. So that's not loading, but yeah, American Tower sort of reported their earnings. Looked pretty good, I thought, and they're down 7.9% on the week. But it's not just them; it's all the REITs. I can't see any sort of particularly bad news for the REITs. I mean, you've got the interest rate rises, potentially sort of going pretty aggressive in the US. They're sort of talking about, as I think I mentioned before, 0.5% in next week, and then 0.75% next in June, and another 0.5% in July. So that would sort of take us up to sort of 2.25% in 3 months, which is quite a bit. And yeah, don't know whether they're I still think they're going to maybe back off that. Would just add a negative quarter of GDP. So in the US, 1.4% down, I think. So sort of aggressively raising rates into what could potentially be a recession seems a little bit off. But we'll see. So yeah, the REITs are pretty much all down. Sentiment flat. Yeah, Digital Realty, not as bad as the others, 2.8%. First Majestic got absolutely hammered on the week because of silver, really. So that's done pretty poor in the last month, but it can spike up just as easily on a rising silver price. So no worries there. Realty, yeah, down 5% on the week. Not too good. Stag, actually the worst, 8.5%. So, yeah, as I say, can't see any sort of real news to have knocked these down particularly. Inflation hasn't sort of changed a great deal. They don't really like sort of very, very high inflation, but I don't think that's really moved. Sylvania, pretty flat for the week. And yeah, the UK REITs sort of not seeing quite as much of a hit. Tritax Eurobox taking a bit of a hit. But Vici flat. So yeah, leave your thoughts in down below if you know sort of anything more that's hit the REITs, because I'm I'm struggling, to be honest. The results look good, and yeah, seems fine. So what has, the investor count has sort of not moved at all. Big tech sort of taken a bit of a knock this week. Google sort of, pretty much all the FANGs released their results, and some sort of not as good as others. Google's were sort of okay. Cloud business doing well. Revenue sort of, I think, slightly down. Earnings slightly down than what was expected. So they sort of got hit a fair bit. I think if you're not, you got to pull something really special, to be honest, to not get down on earnings at the moment. Apple released their earnings, beat pretty much everything they could, and they sort of saw a temporary bump and then down again. So yeah, they're not able to sort of hold on to these even small gains. And it just seemed to sort of take the whole market with it, sort of worldwide, unless you were fairly stable. Bristol Myers sort of had a little rise during the week and then sort of reported earnings pretty good, but guidance for sort of going forward not so good. That seems to be the sort of fairly common theme, to be honest. It's lowered guidance. Glencore sort of came back from its little drop, which a little bit surprising considering copper's down, but I think maybe this was just a little bit overdone in the last sort of couple of weeks. Intel similarly didn't sort of do anything particularly good in earnings. Guidance was a little bit weak, so yeah, they're down. Still sort of not jumping at them, to be honest, because it still doesn't look mega value compared to sort of the other positions that I'm in. Sort of Hymax as a semiconductors seems a little bit better to me. So yeah, I'm not selling things to jump on Intel at the moment. But I am considering selling Johnson & Johnson still. Just sort of waiting for maybe another little one last hurrah spike from them. Still sort of 17 times forward earnings. Stock is, or their company is splitting into 3 sort of late next year, I think. Sort of unsure about whether I'm going to want sort of any more than one of those companies. So yeah, it's not something I'm looking to keep sort of long term anymore. Just waiting for the right time to sell that. Lennar hasn't really moved. Meta Platforms has, so 8.7% up in the last week. Sort of dropped down and then actually moved up sort of 17%, I think, on the day of their earnings. Wasn't terribly good, really. I think revenue down, earnings slightly up, but they had sort of slight user growth, which they were expecting sort of continued decline. Seems to be a lot of fear around TikTok, surprisingly. But yeah, so people weren't expecting revenue growth, and they've sort of announced more buybacks. They're announced some cost cutting, which is pretty good. They're sort of trying to talk about Reality Labs not being a bottomless pit of money. They're trying to spend it wisely, which is reasonably good. The metaverse sort of investments, been more sort of negative news about their sort of NFT platform, sort of potentially charging like 45% fees, where you don't on sort of proper crypto platforms, OpenSea and that sort of thing. Generally sort of fairly low fee. So yeah, we all know the sort of curated big tech side of the metaverse is going to be fee heavy. So yeah, that's Meta Platforms. Pretty happy with them. Could have bought some in the low, but yeah, wasn't really for me. What else we got? Micron, pretty flat. Nintendo, down quite a bit, but yeah, they haven't really gone down with everything else. Process, obviously being mostly Tencent has gone up. Seen a nice move from Tencent's rise. Renault sort of actually outperforming Stellantis sort of in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, I am considering just selling this off. Can't see a sort of particular recovery on the horizon with the lost Russia business. So yeah, they were never in a good position really. It was sort of me hoping for future electric development and sort of them being able to maintain, sort of manage their debt. And it just, balance sheet seems a lot worse than Stellantis now, sort of with the lost business. Can't see them sort of being able to pay off this debt in a hurry. So I think I'm just going to sell that off and put that into Stellantis as well. Samsung down a little for the week. Shell slightly down, but looking okay. Sony flat for the week. So yeah, Stellantis sort of down 4.6%. And I have made a sale of Turtle Beach. Just sort of not looking particularly good, even though it's sort of reduced earnings, reduced revenue, sort of inflation hitting them a fair bit, I think. It's been a year and a half now since the new consoles came out, so can't see any sort of particular catalyst for them. I expect people who are sort of going to buy their new equipment on sort of launch of the consoles have done that, and sort of didn't really seem all that good value, so decided to sell that off and put that into Stellantis. So not too bad for them. Taiwan Semiconductor still dropping, waiting to sort of get some more cash from elsewhere or one day crypto and sort of put into that. Tesla, interesting one, 13.37% down on the week. So he has bought Twitter, and the sort of expectation, I think he has sold, I saw about $4 billion, I think it was $4 billion of Tesla stock. And I didn't see the news whether he actually is leveraging a good amount of Tesla shares. I think he was. So yeah, people are not liking that. Obviously, if Tesla sort of goes down, then could potentially get margin called. If Twitter goes to nothing, then he could be on the hook for selling that stock. So yeah, it's just not really something I was interested in. I don't think Tesla investors want to be sort of tied to Twitter now. So yeah, that's come right down. Not quite a buy yet for me. Tyson, not too bad. Vale, pretty flat. Yeah, and Volkswagen sort of slightly down. So yeah, just, I don't really show this that much, but just to sort of highlight my larger positions. So 38 investments now. I was at sort of the high 40s, and I've been sort of consolidating somewhat. And so I end up with, the ETF obviously being my larger position. That's always going to be. More ETFs to come later on. But yeah, Shell sort of second largest position. Hymax being a very, very small cap. Being second is surprising, but I have been loading up. Broadcom, fairly happy with. But yeah, sort of Stellantis being right the way down here, 3%. It was obviously before the Turtle Beach sell and purchase. It was all the way down here. So wanted to up that. And yeah, that'll probably come up to sort of above Tyson, maybe above Lennar during the week. So yeah, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Been a slow week, as I say, on the portfolio, but like and subscribe, and see you soon.